Hopefully it stays this way. Not that it matters too much if my mouth and my sounds synchronize, but you know, I like to make it look okay, I guess. And honestly, I don't know. It might stitch it back together as it streams it. I'm just looking at the playback on my computer here on my computer screen. Well, I'll give people a minute or two to get online if they are coming today. There's lots to talk about though, so I might just go ahead and start talking about a few things and then get into the main bit today. The main purpose of today's session is to talk about the Object Lessons project, which is the big project this week and really the only big project this week. Unlike the first 2 weeks, there's only one thing going on. So that one thing will take some time and I'll explain it, but you know, it's not, you do not also have a module going on. So it's just one thing. And it's an individual project, so no group to coordinate with. But I do have some follow-up comments and thoughts about the web literacy project. All right, well, yeah. Hope everyone's doing okay. Yeah. Unfortunately, several reasons you might not be doing okay. There's a lot going on. Yeah, just in the world, but in Fredericksburg too. So I don't know. I don't know if any of you were involved in the demonstrations last night, but part of what I wanted to talk about actually is how there are conflicting reports about what happened last night, both just like in Washington D.C., but also in Fredericksburg. So that's something, by the way, I thought this session or what I have to say in the stream today might not take that long, and so perhaps I'll wrap it up a little bit early and then invite you, if you want, to join a Zoom call where we can talk about things if you have things to talk about. I mean, I like doing these Twitch streams. It's easy for me to set up, and I think it's easier for you to watch. I hope it's easy for you to watch these, but obviously it's not the same as a conversation. It's definitely a one-sided kind of communication where I'm in control here, and perhaps you have things you'd like to say or ask, and maybe we should try a Zoom call just to see, give you all a chance to share your thoughts in that mode if you'd like. I'm still showing 0 viewers, so I'll wait until I have at least one before I get into anything important. It's a beautiful day. It's very sunny. Not too hot. I think it's supposed to get pretty hot on Wednesday, though. So we'll see. Oh, 4 viewers. Great. Hello, whoever you are. Thanks for joining me today. So I don't know how long you've been watching, but thanks for watching. There are a few things I mentioned already, and the main thing, as you can see from the agenda, there it is, that I've written on the board here is that I want to talk about the Object Lessons project because that's the big project this week. So I want to make sure I spend some time with that. First, though, I think there are a couple of things that I think bear some, that are important to acknowledge or talk about at the outset of the class. And so I want to talk through some of that first. Obviously, let me switch my scene over here. I've changed my scene around, by the way. Like I'm over here on the bottom right instead of the left. Or no, I was always on the right. But I've taken the chat window out, the Slack chat, just because it's too complicated for me to manage that, and I want to make sure to protect your privacy on these streams. So if you have things you want to say during the stream, you can of course chat during it on Slack, and I'll see those, but they won't be posted in the video. If you use the Twitch chat, it does show up in the chat box on the Twitch interface, whether you're watching it online or through an app. So you know, those are public, but they're public in a way that's kind of with a pseudonym if you want to do it that way. But you know, today, as you can see here, I do want to talk about phone story. That's something I sent you in an announcement and in the notes for today. That's why this is up here. But first, I don't know if you're watching the news. I hope you're watching the news. There's a lot of strange. There are things going on. You know, so as I hope you know, and again, like I'm saying, hopefully you know these things are going on. Minneapolis, there was an event in Minneapolis. The police killed someone, George Floyd, and it looked pretty serious. It looked pretty bad. So he's been arrested for murder, the police officer. But that's led to uh, widespread demonstration and protest in lots of places, including Fredericksburg last night. That was so. I think a lot of that is just it's anger. It's built up over a long time, and this kind of thing keeps happening over and over again. And so it's certainly an understandable emotion to experience anyway. But I think a lot of people's emotions and anxieties are intensified right now because of the pandemic going on too. So just a lot of tension, right? So what's interesting is, and I have the story pulled up here from Twitter because there's been a pretty interesting disinformation campaign going on. I think it's a disinformation campaign going on last night, and this is just my normal feed here, last night and this morning on Twitter. And I wanted to know I'm kind of curious if any of you all saw this or have been, following this at all. There are two things I wanted to mention. First of all, there is just locally, right? So let's take a look. Unfortunately in Fredericksburg, we don't have like a TV station. So whenever things were getting intense last night, like I subscribed to the city text message system, and so they sent out a notice saying avoid certain areas. Then later they said curfew was imposed at 11:30, and then they did an automated robocall around 2 a.m. basically saying an all clear. So I was wondering, what the heck is going on? There's no news station, but the Freelance Star published a story around 11:30 last night, I think. But the way I was finding out what was going on is through Twitter. And if you search on Twitter right now, FXBG, that's what I usually do. You can also do the latest just to kind of get a less curated view of things. You can find out, that's how I was trying to find out what was going on last night, just around town. And lots of people I follow, former students, current students, were out. Friends of mine were out demonstrating and protesting and reporting on what was happening. One of the claims, and you can see just normal kind of random things, but let's see if there's if there's some perspectives. Okay, so here's this one. One of the claims last night, one of the accounts from last night was that the Fredericksburg police used tear gas on protesters. There is video of that, and so that seems to have happened. There is also the claim, looks like there was arson at the police department. I didn't see this one yet, but that looks like there was also that. There was also a claim that they used rubber bullets last night, and as you saw, I think under the top search, the Fredericksburg police Twitter posted that did not happen, or that they did not use bullets or rubber bullets. This is interesting. This is Delegate Josh Cole, who's our local state representative, and apparently he experienced tear gas last night. But anyway, I don't remember where it is now. This is how it's sometimes hard to find things. The point is that Twitter remains an important news source. It's an important way to find information, especially when things are just happening really quickly, like they were last night. And you have different sources, different information, but certainly the immediacy of Twitter is very useful. It's a very useful tool to figure out what's going on, and unfortunately, it is also a thing that can be exploited for misinformation and disinformation. Between those two, misinformation, I think that's just when people are mistaken or they're jumping to a conclusion. It's anybody can be wrong, and that's what I think of as misinformation. Disinformation is when someone else is trying to actively confuse people, and unfortunately, that seems to be what's happening kind of in real time right now. It seems to be dying down a bit, but if you take a look at the hashtag DC Blackout, it does seem to be somewhat ongoing. So if you search for DC Blackout, it's really fascinating actually looking at this, because there are two competing claims, I think. As you can see, it's also just being spammed like crazy by now. That's what a lot of these are right now. But this is someone, here it goes again. Yeah. So here's a pretty typical kind of claim that you see that's going around. This particular tweet. So, okay, this actually gets too far into it, but this is in kind of phase 2 of the disinformation campaign. But the first phase that I started seeing was that I mean, the claim going around was that Washington D.C. went into a internet blackout last night. That at some point around 10 or 10:30 last night, suddenly social media traffic from Washington D.C. disappeared, and so did a large number of protesters. That they physically disappeared. That was a claim that I saw circulating. Pretty shocking claim. The takeaway from that many people saw when they saw that being tweeted is that it seems sort of implausible, but it goes around, right? I mean, these tweets get amplified. Then the response to that is now this tweet here that's in this screenshot. As someone seeing DC blackout trending, this hashtag looks like misinformation. No social media from DC because we were asleep. Stop scaring people. So that exact tweet, the text of that tweet apparently showed up thousands of times. Thousands of different Twitter accounts tweeted this tweet sometime this morning. And then people started noticing, hey, thousands of accounts are tweeting the same message. So if you search for it, you can see all these bots in real time. All this is really fascinating to me to study because of, I'm interested in Twitter bots and discourse on social media. It's really interesting too how quickly context becomes important, because this particular tweet, I saw people making fun of it or using it or making versions of it to kind of play into the joke on purpose. And at the same time, you can also see what I take to be genuine bot accounts tweeting the same thing still, even pretty frequently. Interestingly, you also got Anonymous, the hacker group, apparently has showed up again, and they were debunking the fact that they were debunking the blackout. They were saying there was no blackout, but now the bots are saying both things. Basically, there are bot networks that are saying the opposite, and so it's like what's actually happening. Altogether, I think this is meant to undermine the reliability of Twitter as a news source, or a way to figure things out. So you see tweets like this one where this is a fire, this looks horrible. The claim here is that this is a Springfield police station. Now, this is a pretty spammy looking account, looks like a bot account to me. I would want to know if this is actually from Springfield, for example, before I retweeted this or did anything like this. So this is a chance to practice our web literacy skills kind of in real time. There was one widely retweeted message, I think, that allegedly showed an explosion in downtown Washington last night, but apparently that was a screenshot from a TV show. So, it's a lot of confusing things, and it's really important for us to figure out what's going on, but also to employ our web literacy skills and our skepticism to some extent. So yeah, I don't know. It's just fascinating, especially because of how this particular one seems to be undermining Twitter itself. Because you see a lot of people saying that Twitter hacked their account and posted these things for them. I don't know. It's really interesting. One thing I did, as I showed you the other day, I did the. You can use this thing called tags, which is a Twitter archiving thing. You can archive tweets based on a search query, including a hashtag, using Google Drive, using a Google spreadsheet. And so I've done that with this hashtag DC Blackout, and starting this morning, I don't think it went all the way back to the beginning, but it's currently up to 52,000 tweets. And I'm trying to capture as much like bot traffic as I can with this. And this spreadsheet system comes with a dashboard now that you can that I've used now to see who's tweeting this. And if you look at the top tweeters within this 52,000, this account here, reart631575534, has been is the most prolific tweeter using that hashtag, and it's done it 77 times in this particular data set. Probably more, maybe less, but that's it's certainly very high. And if you look at it, this is, I believe, a bot account. I might be wrong, but it has a lot of the tells for a bot account, which is that it retweets like crazy. It is, it's very consistent in the kinds of things it retweets. So it's tweeting the hashtag, but it's tweeting things continuing the narrative of the DC blackout. So it's not having a discourse about it. It's one side of it over and over and over again. This account has one follower. They joined in Twitter in April, and their username is basically nonsense, and they have an anime profile. So all those things added together are typical bot signals, and you know, any one of those individually might make you suspicious, but added all together, that helps me feel pretty confident that this is a bot. So this is the example. This is what I'm interested in. I don't know what to say. So this is you know, real-time disinformation, I think, is what we're seeing. It's crazy. Okay, so a couple other things. If you want to talk about these things, by the way, you know, like I said, I might open up a Zoom conversation in a little while just to give you all a chance to talk. I mean, I don't know you all very well, but we do have we're starting to get a sense of community among ourselves, and so it might be useful to, or it might be good to actually hear from you all. I don't otherwise do that except for the videos that you pre-record or type messages that you type. Okay, so that's all I have to say about disinformation right now, but I imagine things will continue to be worth monitoring. Okay, so I want to tell you a couple of things about the articles. I think they've made a lot of good progress, especially the ones where you're able to use images and cites, you know, citations. So I will be going through and doing a lot of commenting on them. So what I will probably be doing is, what you'll probably see as an editor of these documents is like dozens of comments from me for each of these. I'm going to be working pretty hard to try to get these into a consistent style so that they sound the same when we put them together. Not same, but so they sound, you know, at a consistent level in terms of their voice and the way they're using links and stuff. So it'll be a lot of little things probably. So when you see these, don't be alarmed. Like when you see these comments coming through, that's just me doing that copy editing work. I'm not going to rewrite your article for you, but I will be doing things like, if it's a small change, I might just make the change, but most of the time I will probably make it as a suggestion because I want you to see what I've changed or what needs to be changed. So some of them can be very minor, and if they are, like we need to set off this name with commas because it's a positive. All you have to do is, and any one of you can do this that are editors on this document, you just have to check the checkbox there to accept that suggestion, unless I'm wrong. I mean, I'm not you know, infallible, but if you know, most of the time I hope I'm going to give you good advice. So you just accept the change if you agree with, if you understand what I'm saying to change, and then you agree with it. Here though, I think, like for example, I think these all should have captions. Like these are images, which is great to have screenshots, but you should make sure to have captions as well. And also just like in terms of this, the way that let's see, can we center that? It works a lot better to have it just in the center like this. It looks longer, like it'll sort of stretch your text out, but it'll look better and more consistent if we do it this way. And then just add your caption immediately below it. So things like that are what I'm going to be going through and doing. But also the writing, I want to make sure that you're being as clear as possible and as confident as possible in your writing. I will also, once I'm done doing the copy editing, kind of line by line, I will make a video and send that to the whole group to give you some thoughts and any specific suggestions. So if you have already contributed to your article, obviously, I hope you'll take these copy edits as constructive feedback and you know, critique in some cases perhaps. And of course, I would like for you to make those changes. So if I say this is something that needs to be rewritten, I would like for you to rewrite that. Or perhaps another member of the group could step in if they haven't had a chance to do much yet, because I know some of you are doing this kind of later. So that might be a good role for some of you to play, to step in and say, okay, I can take this and see what I can do with it. Okay, so that's all kind of wrapping up last week kind of stuff, but basically be on the lookout for comments and a video from me on those. Let's take a look at what's coming up this week, which is the object lesson projects. A couple of things about this to give you some context. The assignment in question is the object lesson assignment, and it is here. A fairly lengthy description because I'm trying to give you, a fair amount of guidance on this, and so please read all this if you have questions, and then if your question isn't answered by this, then of course please ask. I can give you the broad outlines, and then we can try to go from there. I gotta get rid of these little links. These anchor links they keep showing up. But basically the idea is that in completing this assignment, you are going to select some object, some piece of media technology, Many people will choose a smartphone for this, maybe because we start by looking at Phone Story and an article called "Your Phone Was Made by Slaves." It doesn't have to be a phone. It can be any kind of. I do recommend. I would request any kind of some kind of media device. So something that can play media or access the internet, something like that. It might be an old laptop. It might be a Game Boy, as I say here. Game consoles are pretty good because they tend to have pretty like people are interested in how game consoles are made and their history. So there are resources out there where people have already done some of the kind of work that this project asks you to do. So you might want to choose one for that reason. But any object works. This is my smartphone. There are 3 options with this. Sometimes people get a little confused on the 3 options, so let me explain this. So I call this a sacrificial device, but if you're choosing options 2 or 3, you don't actually have to do the deconstruction step. Maybe I should add a little bit of explanation in here, but this is, it's already very long, so I'm trying not to go into it too much. But if you're choosing, so maybe I should just move this section down actually. But there are 3 different stories that you can tell about an object, and maybe more, but I'm focusing on 3 here. One is the prehistory, which is where you figure out where your object came from. So when I say came from, I don't mean, where did Samsung come up with the idea for making a smartphone called a Galaxy? I mean, where was this one manufactured? And this one, it says it was made in Korea. So where in Korea was that manufactured, and when, and what are the parts of it, and where were they made? So in order to really get into this assignment and to really tell the prehistory, you do have to open up your device. You have to at least look inside. You may not have to disassemble it entirely, but at least take a look inside it to start to see how the different components were built. So Korea, Samsung does do a lot of their own manufacturing. So they have different groups, different units of Samsung that make different things for them in Korea. A lot of other companies, though, like Chinese companies especially, will be getting components from different manufacturers, subcontractors, and then putting those together into a device. And it's that idea of putting them together that I'm interested in with the prehistory. It takes a lot of work. Usually in the fall-spring semester, this is the only option that I give students, and they work together in groups of 4 to 5, and it's still a very hard project. So I think for this summer version, you only have a few days to do this. Most students find this to be too much of a challenge. Most students find the prehistory to be too much of a challenge. And so most students end up focusing on one of the other 2 options. But I leave it there because some students have really gotten into this and done a great job with it in the summer version of this class. So, bear that in mind. Okay, so for the lived history and the afterlife versions of the assignment, if you choose this one or this one, you do not have to take your device apart, but you should try to learn as much as you can about what's inside of it so that you can offer an informed explanation of it. So the lived history is the story of the object, like when you got it, what it went through when it lived with you, and then where it goes next, what happens next with it. So this one takes a little bit more creative writing. It's almost a nonfiction, like a creative nonfiction kind of assignment if you do it that way. The details are here. I'll talk about that a little bit more later. The afterlife is the 3rd option, where you imagine, and this is more like science fiction writing, where you have to imagine a possible future for this. Like, what happens next? If I take this to recycle, if I take it to Best Buy for recycling, what does Best Buy do with it? You can learn some things about that by investigating what Best Buy says about what they do with it, but you can also speculate. I mean, it's the future. So you could say, well, Best Buy says this, but actually it's going to go here, and then it's going to end up on some other planet for some reason eventually. Who knows? I mean, you can be creative with that. That's the idea. But the point of all these is to really focus on device object specificity, like thinking about not the idea of smartphones, but this smartphone, the one in your hands, or the Xbox or the Game Boy or whatever it is, and to think about your relationship with it. That's what we're trying to get at. Okay, so it's a lot to take in. So read through this. Let me know if you have questions. 2 things that I asked you to look at today, and mainly I think I'll just sort of demonstrate these, and then some of you have already posted some thoughts in Slack, so thanks for that. But if you have other thoughts, and if you're just watching this now, of course there's still plenty to say or talk about. For Phone Story, let me just show you this. I don't know if OBS is going to pick up the audio from this. It doesn't really matter to me, but I don't want it to be super loud. Looks like it is pretty loud. Okay, so the way I have this computer set up, I can't actually hear any playback from the desktop, so I don't know. But the microphone the audio settings in OBS show that it's picking something up. Okay, well, let me just show you what you're doing here. This is usually something you do on a phone, like a touch screen. And this is a game with a very particular rhetoric to it. As you can see, I'm failing in this particular playthrough because I was checking on something. The game is about to say something interesting, so I'll let it say that. If you fail, let me see. Okay, so actually it didn't say, I don't know if you actually heard that, but it basically, the phone character, the phone that you're playing, says something like, don't pretend you're not complicit. And the fact that I didn't do anything just now, as I played, of course, was because I was talking, but you may well reasonably find yourself unable to proceed. And this is something to acknowledge. Some students have found that they were not able to complete this, if you understand what you're doing here. These are children. They're mining coltan, it tells us, and we play as essentially these soldiers. And so our job is to scare them into working harder. It's a really brutal game mechanic, and it's even more jarring, I think, because of the cartoony style that it's presented in. And that is by design. Moli Industria is definitely trying to affect us emotionally. And I'm not going to play this one on the stream because it's too much. But you see what I'm saying? I will bring that screen back, though. It is a game where the questions that I posed in there were prompting you to think about it this way. The mechanic, like the thing that it asks you to do is the rhetoric. Like that's the part of it that's trying to be persuasive here to help you think about something that you might not have thought about before. And it's using this game mechanic very purposefully. And how you feel about that may vary. I mean, some people find it, and really there's a wide range of responses that I've heard from students in this. Some have found it so upsetting they couldn't play it. Some have found it just trivial and silly. Some people have found the triviality of it or the silliness of it offensive. So yeah, a lot of different reactions. I will just say that this game designer, Moli Industria, they do work like this. They do a lot of things. I haven't looked at their website lately. Hopefully there's nothing too shocking on their website at the moment. Let's see. Yeah, okay, that's not bad. They do games that are sometimes art games, and they're interesting, poetic. Some of them are very, I would almost say political games. Like they're very strong and very pointed in their criticism of institutions. So I like their work a lot. I think much of it is very compelling. Some of it's very sad. Some of it's very offensive. So I like that a lot, but your mileage will vary. I mean, you may find yourself reacting to them differently, and that's of course you're right. Okay, so but definitely, I definitely want you to play this game, and as you saw working there, I mean, I'm sure you can find videos of people playing the game on YouTube, but doing it yourself is really what makes it work, or not. But that's the thing that you have to try in order to really experience this. Watching someone else play it and talk about it, like watching me talk and play about it, it just isn't the same because you have to evaluate your own decision making in this, your own abilities to do the right thing or choose to do, what do you do? I mean, do you choose to do what you feel is the morally right thing, or do you choose to do what the game mechanic tells you to do in order to win it? And that tension is really where the work happens for this. So I really want you to play it. The other thing I asked you all to read today was the article, Your Phone is Made by Slaves. I think is the actual title, but was made by slaves, a primer on the secret economy. As I think I saw someone noting in Slack, this is also a very difficult thing to get through. It is painful. I mean, the way that the suffering is described in some cases. It's a really interesting article, though, and I wanted to read it. I keep coming back to it, not just because it tells you something important, but there are some really interesting ideas in here. and interesting combinations of ideas that I haven't always thought of before. Now, one thing I would like for you to do with this is comment on it using hypothesis, and I will load hypothesis here. I mentioned hypothesis way back when we talked about, what was it? Vannevar Bush's essay, As We May Think. And in that essay, you might have seen there were tons of annotations. Likewise here, I've directed students to do this before. And so if you load hypothesis with this, you will see something like 400 comments on it. Others have used this article too, I think, but this is just a quick view of it. What you could do is highlight things that you find particularly surprising or particularly elegant in the way they're expressed. I think Kevin Bales is a good writer, and I think that it comes through in this piece. So note that. Also, the thing that I'm interested in as I read this is the hints of optimism. The idea, in other words, the idea that something. Sorry, there's a big bird. I'm trying to see what that was. Anyway, there is a tone in this that there is something we should do about this. Not that it's not just we should know that, it's not just like, let's be aware of this, but actually now that we're aware of this, here's what we should do next. And I think that's really important. I think it's always good to think about what that next step is or find that next step beyond awareness. I mean, awareness is important, absolutely, but there is also a way to think about agency, and we need agency sometimes. And this actually ends on that note. So if there's anything in here that you find particularly interesting or surprising or troublesome or whatever, you can leave a comment on it here using hypothesis. And in the notes for today, I've got a link to hypothesis, which has a video explaining how to use hypothesis. When you do that, just hashtag DGST 101 within hypothesis. I'm not logged in here. Maybe I should log in just to be to do this. I think that's my password. Yeah, okay. I don't want to say that. So I just want to make sure you know how to do a hashtag in here. But like if you want to do, So leaving a comment is as easy as you highlight. Once you have a hypothesis running, you highlight, you click annotate, and then it pops up here. So this is, I didn't realize this was a thing as recently. And this is true. This is something I did not know much about before reading this article. But then you just down here at hashtag, just type DGST 101 and then post it to the public. And that'll just make it easier for me to find your comments, and because there's a feed of those all together. But I mainly just want you to practice getting used to using a web annotator. It's just a good thing to have in your toolkit. So that's the main thing. If you have thoughts about this and you'd like to discuss it in a more conversational way, there's a Slack channel for this article. There's a Slack channel also for Phone Story. So you can comment there, or if you have more complicated things to say, a blog entry might be a great way to spread that out a little bit and share your thoughts. I'm especially interested in your thoughts on the article because it's more content. I mean, it's more information, but certainly the Phone Story game is very interesting and challenging to play through. So I look forward to your ideas about that as well. Yeah, so those are the two things. I don't want to get into analyzing or discussing these here so much, because I think I'd like for you to do that. I'd like for you to take the lead, and then I'll engage with you either on your blog or in Slack as you start to figure out your response to it. Okay, so I think I'm going to wrap up the stream. This is a bit early, but I think I've gone through just about everything I need to. Let's see, I have not actually been looking at Slack. Yeah, I haven't seen any questions come through Slack or Twitch. So if you have any questions that you would like for me to answer on stream, go ahead and get them in before I wrap it up. Otherwise, let me just take another look at the notes and make sure there's not something else that I need to share with you. I know I need to link the notes to this schedule page, but I linked to it in the announcement I sent earlier. So we're in week 3, day 1. Discussion of Phone Story. Yeah, and just take note here, like you will probably have to enable Flash or do something with Flash to get it working. Should not be too challenging, but if you get stuck, let me know. I mean, it shouldn't take too many steps. I mean, your browser will do the work. Yeah, then here's the information about phone story and hypothesis. So yeah, I think that's it. So your main things are read the assignment so you understand where we're going. I might be tweaking that a little bit, but not significantly. I just need to copy edit it basically. And then take a look at phone story if you haven't already and read the article and respond to both. I'm interested in your ideas on both because these are going to inform your projects. Like these are things that are going to help you understand what it's important to take note of when you tell the story about your object, whatever that is that you choose. Okay, well, like I said, I don't have a whole lot to say today. I kind of got into the disinformation thing, but it's an ongoing emerging story, and it's troubling but fascinating. So I've been paying attention to it, and hopefully you're paying attention too. Hopefully you're noticing things. All of this, by the way, is worth. I mean, you have a blog, and these are things you can use your blog to talk about if you choose. Yeah. All right. Well, I think what I'll do next, I will open up a Zoom conference. I'll post a link in Slack shortly and invite you all to join me. Totally optional, but if you feel like you want to touch base, say hi, ask a question on camera, then I'm going to give you that opportunity. Or just if you want to talk about anything, I'll do that. I know that's a different kind of engagement. It's not something that we've done yet in this class, but I think it might be. I don't know. Maybe that's something that some of you might prefer actually. So. I will open that up in a moment. I'll share a link in Slack. Okay, well, have a good day. I just got another text message from the city. It looks like there's more demonstrations planned today. So, or it looks like a phone message actually. But I saw something on their Twitter, Facebook, or on their Twitter feed about further demonstrations. I don't know if you're in. I don't know where any of you are geographically, but if you are in and around Fredericksburg, be careful out there. Just use common sense. Be alert. Be aware of what's going on. But yeah, mainly stay safe, help other people stay safe. That's the idea. That's all we can do sometimes. Okay, well, thanks for watching. Have a good day, and I will see you all tomorrow with another stream at 2 o'clock.